This is my favorite Sony picture profile to use, especially if you do not want to color grade. If you're making content for social media, you're doing vlogs, a video podcast, maybe even live streaming, and you just don't want to color grade, then make sure you follow these settings to get the best colors possible straight out of your Sony.
You gotta just press record.
These settings are gonna look best on the newer Sony cameras with that new Sony color science that they have in these cameras, like the A7C, the A7 IV, or like the A7S III that I'm using right now. We'll have a link in the description with some of the cameras that this is going to look really good for, but let's just get right into it.
So go into the menu and you want to go to exposure and color. And from here, we're going to go to color and tone. First things first, we want to turn the D-range optimizer on to level 5, and that's going to give you the best dynamic range possible. After that, make sure creative profile is turned off. And then we're going to go back here and go to creative look. Now, typically it is set to the standard picture profile. This is what standard comes on all the Sony cameras. So if you have never touched this, this is what you're gonna see right here. However, oftentimes the skin tones can look a little bit red or it looks a little bit flat. There's not as much contrast. And it just doesn't look as good as possible. So there's a few tweaks we want to do. The very first thing is we want to go down and you're going to see NT. This is the neutral creative look, and this is going to give you the best colors possible. But right away, it's not going to look the best. You need to make some tweaks because it's going to look really flat. We need to add some contrast, some color. Let me show you exactly how to do this. All you need to do is go over and we're going to start by turning the contrast up to +4. Then we're going to go to highlights and turn that all the way down to -9 so that we can pull as much information from the highlights as possible. Then we're going to leave the shadows at 0. We're also going to leave the fade at 0. And then for saturation, we want to boost this up. And what I found looks really good is +6. Then when it comes to sharpness and clarity, I like to leave those default at 4 and 1.
And of course, all of these settings you can slightly tweak to your preferences. So if you want the saturation a little bit higher or a little more contrast, just go through, make some changes, but this is going to be a very good starting place. Some of the footage that you're looking at right now was shot on the Sony A7S III, and this is completely ungraded. I found these colors to look really, really good, and I knew I did not want to go through and color grade all of this footage. But through this event, I found that these settings gave me the best colors. The greens really popped. I thought the skin tones were great. There was a lot of dynamic range there, and I was able to just send it to an editor right away, and we were able to chop up content for our social media without color grading. All right, so there's really 4 more settings that we need to dial in, and the first one is to shoot in 8-bit. A lot of people like to shoot in 10-bit because you get so much more color space, but when you're not color grading, you don't need to shoot in 10-bit if you get everything looking really nice in camera. And this is going to save you some space, and it's going to be a lot easier to edit, and it's still going to look really, really good. Number 2, to get really good colors, you want to make sure that you're shooting in the right exposure. This just means that you're shooting in the proper brightness. The image isn't too bright and it's also not too dark. And there's a setting you can do to make this really easy. On your camera, you want to find your zebra levels or your zebra display. And you can find this in the menu system, or you can set it up to be on your quick menu like I have right here. Now on the zebra level, as you select this, you're going to have some different options. You want to go all the way down where you see C1, which stands for custom button 1, and also C2. And we're going to go over, it could be either one, C1 or C2. I have mine set up to custom 2, and you want to change this to standard plus range. Then I want you to go over and make sure this is set to ±1. And this is going to give you a range. When you set this number to 68, this is where I love to have my skin tones falling in the range of just underneath 70. So now on the screen, when you see these zebra levels on my forehead, this means that my skin tones, the brightest parts on my face, are falling in between 67 and 69. Now that your exposure is set, the third thing you want to do is set a proper white balance.
So go back to that quick menu setting and you want to go to white balance, and you're going to see custom 1. And when that's selected, you are going to set your white balance, and then you want to have a grade card or something like this. You're going to select that. And now this is going to give you the best colors possible.
If your colors look really wacky, it's probably because your white balance is off. So make sure you are always setting a proper white balance when shooting your videos. Now, the last piece to the puzzle to get a really good looking shot with great colors from your camera, honestly, is lighting. So click on the screen and watch this lighting tutorial, which is going to help you set up the lights properly to get the best colors and best look out of your camera.